let's do this. Let's go to our next guest. We are going to go to Drew Allen. We are going to call him on the Skippa Skypa. Look at that. And we will get Drew in here. And da-da-da. There's Drew. Drew, how are you, sir?
Hey, Jim. I'm good, brother. How are you? Actually, it's crazy because we just sent out that pitch for MTG, and my life just ended, so it's cool.
You know, Drew is amazing. He is a PR guy. He's a radio talk show host. He's done a little bit of everything. Today, we are basically talking with Drew about books and everything that he is involved in, besides all the craziness that is going on in the PR world. So,
inside baseball.
Yes, that is kind of that is kind of how that whole thing works. The life of a high profile publicity guy plus a best-selling author. But we have got Drew Thomas Allen with us today. He joins us live here on our big program, America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? And Drew Thomas Allen with us today here on our big broadcast. So, Drew, let's talk about the book. Why did you decide to write this book? And also, when did you have time to write this?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you what it was. I wrote another book, actually, that was about 100,000 words. And the publisher was like, no, you're not famous enough to write 100,000 page book and have us publish it. So why don't you write, why don't you keep it under 60,000 words? And it just kind of coincided with what was going on in the country. And so my previous book was kind of titled American Renaissance. And it was kind of more intellectual and academic and a little bit broader about how if we want to, really save America, we need to restore the American principles. And so this has a lot of that in it because that's true. But I knew 6-7 months ago when I basically wrote a new book and took a few things from the other one, manuscript. But, I just looked at the landscape and look, I understand as best I can living in the present, like you, like anyone, the gravity and the danger this nation's in. And,
yes.
When we look back on the American Revolution or the Civil War, honestly, for those people, in some ways, I'm not talking about the death of loved ones and so on and so forth. Obviously, they felt that severely. Like, we can't feel that for them. But when we look back, we attach a certain amount of gravity that wasn't even present for the Founding Fathers. Now, they understood what was at stake, what they were fighting for, and so on and so forth. But my point is, when you're living through the moment, it's just day to day. You're making decisions. You're trying to move somewhere. You don't have the benefit of hindsight. So, for us, in some ways, we understand the country's at peril, but it's not 30, 40, 50, 100 years in the future, and there aren't history books written about this moment to explain to people what happened, and we don't know what happened. We're still writing that story. But it's very clear to me that 2024 is a inflection point in American history, and I argue that it's really the third great test we've faced as a nation. And everyone says, James, as you know, every election's the most important election.
Oh yeah, I've been hearing that since Gore and Bush. It is the most important election of our lifetime.
Yes, so it's a little bit. It gets overused, so it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. But 2024 is that. If people will just kind of reset themselves and forget that they've been told this every single election of their life, 2024 is, and I'll tell you why. Because one, the speed at which we've lurched, frankly, towards communism and Marxism, towards totalitarianism. That's the real ism that we're talking about anyway. That's what those ideologies embody. But, the prosecution and persecution of Donald Trump is unprecedented in American history. So that's something that we can use objectively to understand how serious the trouble we're in. No president in U.S. history prior to Trump had ever been indicted for any crime committed. And the difference, of course, is Donald Trump hasn't actually committed any crimes, but he's being prosecuted for crimes that are being invented and manufactured. And some of them, they're quote unquote crimes that Democrats have committed themselves. And in the case of like a Clinton, Bill Clinton, he actually committed perjury. He committed a crime and he was let off the hook. So we didn't even do this to Robert E. Lee, the general of the leader of the Confederate Army. So, that's somebody who was actually a traitor. I don't know if people understand this, but, leading an armed rebellion, as the Confederacy and the Democrats did, that was actually treason. And he was actually indicted by a grand jury, Robert E. Lee, that is, and ultimately he had all the charges dropped in the best. So my point is, even in the Civil War, we did not persecute and prosecute real traitors, but they're going to try and treat Trump that way. And it's the end of free and fair elections if they get away with this, the way they're trying to influence and meddle in this election. And you don't even have to like Trump to understand that this is wrong and that it's a threat to the republic.
We have got a great guest with us today. Drew Thomas Allen joins us here on our big broadcast. His brand new book, America's Last Stand, is a fantastic read. So what has been the feedback that you've gotten on the book so far?
Oh, the feedback so far has been overwhelmingly positive. People said it's succinct, it's easy to understand, and it's helping them, put a lot of things that they think into words. Because, look, there's a lot of thoughts we all have. We're just bombarded daily by the media, even media that we agree with, that we believe is true. Every day there's a new dumpster fire, so it's hard to focus. It's hard to keep our focus on what we need to do. And so so far people have enthusiastically said that this book has been a useful resource to them. And that's why I wrote it. I mean, I would compare this. I don't mean this in an arrogant way. I'm not Thomas Paine, who wrote Common Sense. That's a special person. But, my intention and the timing of this is similar. I mean, Thomas Paine, in a sense, with the specific purpose of persuading the American colonists to support the American Revolution and support their fight for freedom. People were kind of wishy-washy. People forget at the time it was not inevitable that we won that war. It was not inevitable that Americans would support it. And so actually that book sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of copies and circulated throughout the colonies. And it was a jolt of energy for our cause. And so I wrote this book very specifically to deal with 2024, to persuade Americans that when we do have a likely rematch between Trump and Biden or some other Democrat they plug in at the last minute, to persuade them to vote for Trump. And, I address it from all angles. And look, I don't write it as somebody who's frankly from a perspective. I am very conservative, and I do personally support Trump. But, it's not written from a fanboy perspective, and I'm not a fanboy. I'm just a pragmatist that studies history, understands history, and wants the best. I have a 7-month-old daughter. I want the best for her. And the best for her is Donald Trump in 2024. And if we don't do that, we're going to have a really, really difficult battle and pain ahead for us.
We have got Drew Thomas Allen with us today. He joins us live. America's Last Stand is the latest from him, and it is a incredible book. So when you went to go put this book together, was there anything you left out of it that might necessitate a follow-up or anything like that?
Well, honestly, the things that were left out of it are the things that have happened since I published it, and every day it's changing. So, for example, in the book, I talk about Trump's record of peace, that we didn't have a war between Russia and Ukraine, and, things were more stable in the Middle East. But, of course, when I wrote it, we didn't have this conflict unfolding between Israel and, the so-called Palestinians. So, things are continuing to worsen. It doesn't change anything. I mean, it's more of the same under this administration, and it's just it's more reason to put Trump back in office. But no, I mean, I'm very happy. I think that surprisingly, apart from things that are happening that I wish I could address in the book. But I can do that this way. I can do it talking to you. I can do it with my writing and things like that outside the book. But oddly, as someone who's a perfectionist and a bad perfectionist in the sense that it prevents me from doing things sometimes or finishing things, I'm very happy because I think that this book does what it needs to do, which is to, one, engage the reader and rally them, excite them, give them actually a sense of optimism and something that puts us on the same page, because you know this as well as anybody, James, but we start talking to people, and if it's left, right, whatever else, we're not even living in the same universe, right? We have,
Yes.
they like the, I'll give you an
Yes.
example. I talk to my Democrat friends, those that remain, and they don't know what I'm talking about ever because they don't read the news sources I read. So they just get what CNN tells us. They don't even know about, like, I guarantee you 70% of this book is like foreign to somebody who just tunes into CNN because they don't do their job,
Yes. Very much so. We have got the fantastic Drew Thomas Allen with us today. His brand new book, America's Last Stand. He joins us today here on our broadcast. One of the things, Drew, that I have been wanting to get your thoughts on, because this is just amazing. I know that it was like 6 months ago, the Democrats were all like, Joe Biden is our guy. It's just the way things are going to be. And anybody who opposed him, whether it was RFK or anybody else, they're like, we're not doing a primary. We're canceling debates. We're done with this stuff. And then, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks said, hey, I'm going to run primary Biden. And now there's all these people that are coming out of the woodwork to primary Biden. What the hell changed?
Yeah, I think that they just perceived weakness in the party because generally, the Democrat Party is very effective. I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I actually think it's great for them. They really maintain control and get everyone to march lockstep. And, that tells you how bad it is in the Democrat Party that people are actually coming out to do this, because people in the Democrat Party, they don't trust, they don't respect Joe Biden. They see what we all see, which is somebody who's just a titular leader. He's not there. He's in mental decline. We don't honestly know how together he is. I mean, I don't know that he knows his own name sometimes, but they're keeping that secret. I guarantee you one day it'll come out what they've been doing to keep this charade going, and it'll be like the biggest cover up in American history. But they smell blood in the water, and what you're seeing is a little bit of mutiny in the ranks of the Democrat Party. People who are a little hungry and eager for to improve their standing in the party and get a little bit more power for themselves. So they're jockeying, because it's highly possible still that they do replace Joe Biden, that he can't run at some point. Now, it's not going to happen the way, Sink or whatever his name is, Young Turks. I mean, he's not going to be selected. It'll happen at the convention.
Oh, my God.
It'll be,
there's no way in hell that the corporate Democrats will select an actual progressive. That'll never happen. I honestly think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. I honestly think that they're eventually going to put him up there because he's doing too many high-profile things, and he's doing too many things for him not to be the guy. It's so strange to me.
I think that he could be, like, for sure he's trying to make himself look like presidential material. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
Why are you, as the governor of California, traveling to China? I mean, despite because you want to hang out with your totalitarian friend.
That's
like,
right.
Why don't you govern, it's like DeSantis, like, aren't you governor of Florida? Like, anyway, but no, I mean, Newsom, I think our perception of him might be a little bit off in the sense that, like, I'm kind of like, oh man, yeah, he's definitely a shoo-in, but I don't know that the country necessarily views him that way. I live in California, obviously, so I'm very familiar with Gavin Newsom.
Oh, you know what I think is so funny, and this is interesting. I hear more people that are in the media that live in California who are like, we don't like the guy. There's no way anyone else would vote for him.
Well, he's just, he's a good-looking guy, but he's actually not very slick in terms of talking. I mean, he's so tone-deaf. He did the French Laundry thing during the COVID lockdowns. And most recently, I don't know if you saw the interview, but obviously Xi Jinping is coming to town. He's meeting with Biden, at their meeting in San Francisco. And so we're told all this time that, we can't do anything about the homeless. Just live with it, step in their feces, step on the needles, and so on and so forth. And then Xi Jinping rolls into town, and they clear out all the homeless. Right now, San Francisco looks like the cleanest city in America. You'd never know. And Newsom was asked about this,
city in
and he's like, well, of course we cleaned it up. Of course we did. You clean up your house when somebody comes over. So it's basically like, F you if you're an American citizen. We will never clean up the city for you. But the totalitarian dictator, Xi, comes into town, and we clean it all up. I mean, it tells you everything about the elitist mentality.
It's amazing. We have got the fantastic Drew Thomas Allen with us today. America's Last Stand is the latest from him, and he joins us today here on our big program. So, I as we wrap up here with you, how in the world did you end up going from being a radio talk show host, a best-selling author, to being a radio guest booker? Because it is amazing. Someday somebody should just write a book about all that.
Yeah, well, and that's not even the prequel to that story. When I was living in Italy, working for Marc Jacobs, going to fashion shows, and
Jesus.
I worked in Hollywood, and I was an actor, and I had a film production company and produced movies and sold movies. And anyway, but that's before that. But then, actually AJ, who runs the company I work for, Publius, he was my publicist. I was his client. And I just told him one day, I said, "You're too expensive. I can't pay for you anymore." And he offered me a job. So,
That's awesome.
So anyway, I ended up doing it. And I kind of did it part time. I didn't know I was going to really get deep into it, but I still do my own show, the Drew Allen Show podcast, and that's a strong passion of mine. But this doing the other side of things and seeing how it works, how the what they say, how the sausage
is made.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a good line. Yes.
Yeah, it kind of just it benefits me in all areas because and even honestly just like working with you and other people, because I know how, so I have sympathy too, so I know how radio works. I know when the breaks are. I know what it's like to have a guest not show up. So
Well, it is definitely an interesting life that you lead. We have got the fantastic Drew Thomas Allen with us today. He, of course, is the author of America's Last Stand, Will You Vote to Save or Destroy America in 2024? It is available wherever you get your books. And are you going to be doing an audio book of this?
Yeah, so it's available, and I narrate it myself. So
That's
people
awesome.
that listen to my show, it's they're so boring the way a lot of they do these stylized audiobooks.
Oh my God,
America's Last Stand. So I don't do any of that. I talk like I'm talking now, so it's engaging.
That's awesome. Well, Drew, it's always a pleasure,
Amazon.
Brother. I always love chatting.
It's good to be with you.
And Drew, before we let you go, how do people listen to the program and your radio show and everything you're doing?
Yeah, subscribe to drewallen.substack.com, and then the podcast is everywhere. It's called The Drew Allen Show, and that's it, man.
That's awesome. Well, Drew, thank you for doing this. Keep up the good work, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to go book 10,000 NPG.
That's right. I got that email.
I'll talk to you later.
I will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day, brother.
All right, bye.
Thank you, man. There he goes. That is Drew Thomas Allen, and he joins us today here on our big broadcast. And that is that. Let's see. If you want to get a hold of us online, you can do so. Jiggy Jaguar.